Hey guys, welcome to Frost Tanking Heroics. This is X, and today's dungeon is going to be the Heroic Pit of Saron. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a different format here in this video. This is going to be a two-part video. The first part is going to cover the instance as a whole, including the bosses, and the second part is going to go through greater detail on the bosses, because I have a lot to say about this particular instance, and I'd like to try this format out for now and for in the future. So, let's go ahead and get to it. I like this instance in particular because it lets you get right into the action. It is, however, a bit of a challenging instance for most groups, especially the ones you're going to be finding in the Dungeon Finder. It's filled with a lot of high HP mobs, such as these casters here. Casters don't typically have such high HP, but they do in this instance. I highly recommend taking that first pull that I just took there, and this patrol as well. I've seen some groups skip them, and wipes have been caused because of it. These skeletons, as I've shown you in a previous video, are susceptible to chains of ice, and so what I like to do is I actually get them a little bit low health, and then I'll chains of ice them and move on to the next pull. With these two skeletons, I like to tab back and forth between them, or in this case just click and target them, and make sure I tap each one with a rune strike here and there just to maintain aggro on both of them. And again here I use chains of ice to hold that one still while I pull the next group. Focus a lot on the proto-drakes in these groups, and make sure and pull away from the spinning swords as they're being cast. Here I pull the mob out of the corpse of the proto-drake, so it makes it easier to loot. And this particular skeleton I'm pulling back using just rune strike, so I can take him in a group with these other two. Watch what I do here. Watch closely for the proto-drake's frost breath and use anti-magic shell to absorb most of the damage and supercharge your runic bar. That Frost Breath ability is a high damage ability, and you can, if you're not a highly geared tank, you can save your healer a lot of pressure by using anti-magic shell there. Here we come up against Garrost, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to go ahead and go quickly through this pull, and I'll briefly explain it, and the next video, which will be linked to this one, will explain in greater detail how to take each of the bosses here. The thing you want to watch out for in this fight is that frost debuff that you see there, that stacking debuff that's right next to my little bloodlust icon over on the top right. You want to try and make sure that doesn't reach very high. You don't want to let it get past 10 or 12 stacks or so. Watch what I do here. Against this skeleton, I let him get to half life, and then I use chains of ice on him. Now, he's at half HP, and I'm running away from him. I'm not generating any more threat. I generated all the threat I needed to in the first half of his life, and notice how he's got me targeted the whole time. This lets me take the next group here, which is a large group of these Geists. Be careful with these guys, because they're small, but they're high damage, and I get a little far ahead of the group here. I'm generating good threat before the group gets here, but I do have to use Icebound Fortitude to maintain my HP until the healer actually arrives. And these guys can be pulled one at a time. Just as a matter of personal preference, I pull them in big groups. If you don't think your group can take this kind of fast-paced action, then I recommend pulling them one, maybe two max at a time. But if you want to really keep things sped up, you can pull them in big groups like this. Just make sure you keep pulling backwards and use your anti-magic shell to absorb the damage from the poison when you have to walk through it. The next boss is Ick and Crick, and I've shown you this guy in a previous video, and I'll briefly cover him here, but once again, the video following this one, which is the second part of this, will cover all of the bosses in greater detail. This guy has three abilities. He has Pursuit, he has his Poison Cloud, and he has, I think it's called Toxic Cloud. No, it's Poison Nova. And he also has an ability where he throws bombs all over the place, explosive mines. You see it right there. And we'll cover all of these in greater detail in the next video. This ramp that comes after this fight can give some groups some trouble. So what I like to do here is, for the first pull, I like to use my Army of the Dead ability. And make sure you're a little bit further back before you cast it, otherwise your ghouls will jump in before you're ready. And once you have your Army of the Dead up, just go ahead and go right in. They'll help you tank this. The reason I do this is because even with some decent tanking gear, a group of casters this large can do a lot of burst damage to a tank, and if the healer's not ready for it, he's not going to be able to keep up with the burst damage, and it's going to cause a wipe for the group. So to prevent that, I just let my ghouls take the initial burst, and then I just finish off the pull. Since there's a second one, and you don't have Army of the Dead available, I like to use Icebound Fortitude here for the second pull, and that will maintain a good amount of HP for me and let me sustain the burst damage that they do, and keeps the group alive because you don't die, and lets it makes a little bit easier time on the healer. Also, what you want to do is you want to watch out for any of these mobs that actually teleport, and they're going to start casting Hellfire. If you see them teleport to a different location and you see them large bursts of flame start popping out of them, like you're about to see one do here, right about here. See, I target him and he's casting Hellfire. I turn to him and I use my Mind Freeze ability to interrupt that spell. That's a high damage spell, and it hurts everyone in the radius, so if you have any melee DPS, you can do them a big favor by making sure to interrupt Hellfire if your melee DPS haven't already. This next couple of pulls, I like to raid mark them, the casters, with Skull and X, and there are a couple of different ways you can deal with that ring of ice. You can either just jump out of it when you see it, the way I did there, and that prevents you from taking any damage and prevents you from being held still. And the second way that you can take care of it is just by standing in it and using Anti-Magic Shell. That will prevent you from being, that will absorb a lot of the damage, just like that, and it will prevent you from being rooted still. So a couple of different ways you can deal with that. This cave here, I've seen give some groups a lot of trouble. This is how you should do it as a Death Knight tank. What I like to do is I like to run in, and on these first big mobs, I'll use Howling Blast, and that will bring them to me with a good amount of threat. And as I'm running up the hallway here, I'll try and maintain threat just by running through and spamming Blood Boil on them. When you get to this stone plate here in the middle, pop Icebound Fortitude to give your healer some breathing room, and then just spread your diseases on the really big guy up there. And you can drop your Death and Decay if you need to. Mostly you're going to want to be using your AoE abilities and just holding threat on all of these mobs, and your healer should be able to keep up. In a moment, you're going to see me try this again for the second half of the cave, and I'm going to show you what you need to do in case you can't seem to make it. Once again, we're setting out, and I'll use Blood Boil on these smaller mobs there, and on the bigger ones I'll use Howling Blast just to make sure that they're stuck to me. And there we go, Blood Boil, just spamming my AoE abilities as I'm running through the cave. And you can see here I start to lose quite a bit of HP, so I turn around to let my dodge and parry take effect, and I go ahead and throw down my Death and Decay because we got more mobs coming in, and I just tank them in spot here. Don't be afraid to go ahead and stop and tank them. Sometimes you'll get group members who will say go, 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 but they don't understand that you were about to die or something ran out of control. As the tank, it's up to you to make sure the party stays alive, even if the party are a bunch of idiots and they tell you to keep going, even though even though you're about to die and the healer can't catch up. It's okay to stop in the middle of the cave there and just tank them. Once you've got things under control, you can back out the way I just did here and finish off the pull. After this, we're going to see the last boss in the instance. We're just going to briefly cover it, and once again, we'll cover it in greater detail in the next video, which will be accompanying this one. Here he is. This guy's got several abilities. As he jumps down, you're going to want to cast your Icy Touch and tank him around like normal. Whenever he enrages, try and run him through his little puddles of frost there. Try and make sure there's always one between you and him whenever he does his enrage. And if you follow that in general, you should be able to take him down pretty easily. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the next video where we cover all the rest of the all the bosses in greater detail. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys.